Project 39, and I want to show you how I made the mixed media background to this hardcover scrapbook album. This is to go along with the Simple Stories, Simple Vintage Weathered Garden collection. Let me open it this way. And I just played around with paints and inks and different things. So that is what I'm going to show you today. So grab your supplies or a cup of coffee and let's get started. All right, so I went in my stash and found this hard chipboard 3-ring binder. I don't know how long I've had it. I don't remember where I got it from. I'm sure a snap binder would work, and I know they sell those at Country Craft Creations. But I'm going to use this as my base. I've never done anything like this before, so I'm not sure what I'm doing. But first thing I know is I don't like this cover. I mean, it would work. Grab the paper to look at how it matches. It would work because there's some of the color, but I mean, I'm going for that vintage feel. So I'm going to first take gesso and color around, especially the edges and the binder. I might sand it off a little bit, but I want it to, I mean, it's called Simple Vintage Weathered Garden, so I want it to look weathered. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to paint it with some gesso, let it dry, sand it, and see what I end up with. So I'm going to have fun painting. That's what I'm doing next. So I'm just using some white gesso on here. I tried to tape off that silver area so I don't get paint on it, but it will come off if you get it fairly quickly. To me, gesso is like a primer. It prepares the surface for adding additional paint, but you always want to cover it with additional paint or else it sort of, other things will adhere to it. So here is me painting with gesso. Now I've taken out of that paper collection this piece, there's the front, and I'm sort of using this as an inspiration. First I was going to go with making like a wood grain finish, but then I saw this and I thought, you know what, I could play around with this. So it's got some areas of just white brushed on. It looks like texture. I'm going to try to mess around with that. It's got some bubbles. It's got some words. It's got lines. It's got these flowers. I'm not going to worry about the flowers at this point. I mean, maybe I'll take one of those cut aparts and use that. But I'm just going to sort of try to recreate the texture from this piece. So if you're looking for inspiration, go into the paper collection you're using and see what you can come up with. Now, I'm sort of at a detriment because I am way out in the middle of nowhere and I don't want to drive an hour to a store and an hour back to get paint. So I'm using what I have. I have some white. I don't have much. I have some green and some brown, and I'm really going to the bottom of the barrel. So I just added all those colors together, and I'm close. This color is close to what I have. I think this might have a little more brown or even a little more charcoal, but as long as I'm close, I'm okay. So I'm going to play around with this and I will show you what I end up with. I'm giving you a checkpoint here at the midway mark. It's not even midway probably. So I've got it covered. It's very streaky. I've got a lot more green and blue here than what the paper was, the original paper, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be exactly like this. This was just a jumping off point for playing around. Now I'm going to add some white. I'm going to try to figure out a way to add some texture to it to make it look like texture. And then I'll let you know what I've done. So that's next. All right, so this seems to be working. I've taken some white paint, put it in my palette, which is apparently a Taco Bell lid. I got it out of recycling. And I'm using this old bristle brush. I never throw these out because having something that's bristly, that'll add some texture. So I'm doing sort of a dry brush. I'm putting paint on, tapping some of it off, and then I'll just make lines. Let my brush do its thing. So I need some more paint. So it sort of will, I don't like how it ends right there, but it'll help add texture. So I'm just going to add some white, dry brushing across the whole surface. Okay, so I went and raided the garage and got some drywall tape. Fabulous thing about this is it's adhesive. There are some that looks more like a checkerboard. This is, it's got bigger pieces going one way than the other, but that's okay. I'm okay with it. So I'm going to put it on in a little area. I've got my paint. It's watered down a little bit because I don't want it to be like blatantly white. I'm just going to put a little bit of paint on in a small area. And we'll peel this off. And there, voila, texture. And then the other thing you could do with this is I've already got paint on here. I'm going to turn it upside down and rub it on. And it's a drier, it's texture also, but not as textured as that. So that'll give you some more texture as well. Let me see, can I get that piece I just did? Right over there. All right, and then the last thing I'm going to do with the white is I'm going to add some water to it and do an area that has some droplets, like here. So, do I want to do a lighter area? I don't know. I'll play around with it and show you what I come up with. Okay, it's still in the playing around stage. But you know, you don't want to do spatters to make it look like specks. I want bigger pieces. So I added a bunch of water to this. I stayed in an area just to make sure I got a lot of paint there. It's probably a lot more water than I want. I'm going to let it dry. Then I'm going to take a paper towel and wipe it up. But let's do some over here so you can see. Let me see. I have it in the center over there. I'm going to have it here in the top. So I'll add watered down paint in this area, and then I'll just let it dry and see what happens. So I'm liking the direction that this is going in. I feel like I've got a lot of layers, and to me layering is how to get the texture and dimension you want. And don't forget, my inspiration piece was this. Now I don't have that, and I don't have these big letters. I don't own any stamps that are that big, or even dies. Suppose I could make some, but I'm just going to forego that. And actually what I think I might do is put some paper on the cover, and then really work on the inside and the back, because I'll leave the back alone, but I will do something to the cover. And who's going to look at the inside? I'll add stuff to it, but I also have in my stash a set of stamps with writing on it, and this one has butterflies. So I'm going to use that next. I did use a stamp here, just playing around with it, using, I was hoping I could use, my new Lost Shadow Distress ink, but it's too light. So I have to use the hickory smoke, which is fine. That actually works out real well. So I am going to take some hickory smoke Distress Oxide. I like that because it's more of a matte finish. I'm inking up this stamp that I have that's got the butterflies. I'm going to try it on the cover first, because as I said, I'm going to cover the cover, but this is a good place to test something and see how it works. Let's just go right here. Trying to keep my cover so it's flat, so I'll get a good impression. Oh, that's okay. So that came out all right. And let me do another second generation stamp with it. I actually like that better, don't you? It's more muted. Let me do one on, well, I'll do one on the inside with the third generation. Oh, you don't even see it. So I'm going to ink this up. And I will stamp here. It moved, but that's okay. And then I will also stamp there, so that's later. And then I'm going to just ink up the script part of it. Have some going off the page here. I'll ink up just the butterfly part and have them going off the page there. Oh, too close to there, but that's all right. I'm not worried about it. And then let me do something on the back. We'll ink that up. This is tough because the rings are on here, so it won't lay flat. I've got a stamp here and a stamp there. I'm just going to have it go off the page here. That's okay. All right. I am going to, I have one more stamp I haven't used here that's got more of the writing. I'm going to use, see how this works. It's antique linen. And it's Distress Oxide. Well, that's nice. I mean, it's very subtle, which is good. Have some going off the edge there. And some up there. All right, that is it for the stamping of the writing. Let me see what else I have in my stash to use. So I decided that I liked the antique linen look that it gives. So I'm going to take some, and put it on my stamping block. It's my large one. I'm going to spritz it with some water. That's a lot of color, but you know, let's see. And again, with the cover, I'm going to cover it with something else. So if I don't like it, it's okay. I'm going to do the back a little bit. And since this is Distress Oxide and that's Distress Oxide, it's going to cause that to weep. I don't know a better word for it. It's going to cause it to run a little bit, and that's okay. To me, it's a very big look. And I'm going to grab my heat gun and dry it a little bit. So that's mostly dried. It looks okay. I do like the yellow. I'm going to play around with that and add a couple more layers of that. And I do like how it accidentally on purpose smudged the gray of that stamp. I like that it's more muted. So I'll play around with that a little bit. All right, so this is what I have. You know, some splotchiness. I added some extra color. On this side, I played with some crackle, and you see where it looks wet? That is a crackle. I'm not nuts about it, But again, the front cover I'm going to cover with paper, which is too bad because this is looking okay. But I am going to cover it with paper. I'm going to just play around with it. I did sand the edges. Again, I'm going for that shabby chic vintage look. And now, so on the inside, I'm not going to cover this with paper. What I decided, I'm getting a little gutsy. So I really like this, the leaves here. So I'm going to do my best to recreate this. I'm going to take, I have some Tim Holtz Distress watercolor pencils, the set number 1, which is the regular colors. I'm going to sketch with that, and then I'm going to add some ink to it. Again, I'm not going to copy this, but I'm going to sort of replicate the style of the flowers. I'm just going to have one stem with a flower coming up from here, and that's it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll sketch it and show you what I've done because it's going to take me a couple of tries, and then I'll show you what I've got. All right, so this is an experiment. Now I tried it on watercolor paper, but of course it absorbs differently than what this is going to. So we'll see. And I am using my Distress ink. I have peeled paint, a little bit of black soot, and I don't have a large, I'm using chipped sapphire Distress oxide. I'd rather Distress ink than an oxide. It's more, it doesn't oxidize as much. I'm going to spritz it with some water. Put some water there in the center. I'm cleaning off my brush. So I know I'm going to start with green. We'll add a little bit of black to it and a little bit of blue. Alrighty, so I have sketched this and I used the peeled paint, the walnut stain, and the black soot watercolor pencils. I'm going to leave the flowers for later. I'm going to attack the leaves. So when you paint over the watercolor, it's just going to blend in. Putting a little black soot down there to add a shadow. I'm letting it spread out and dry. I guess I should have just sketched the outline, knowing that the watercolor crayons, watercolor pencils were just going to blend, but that's okay. It adds color to it. And I don't mind that we've got some of the outline of the watercolor pencils. I'm trying to get some more of the blue. It sort of gives it a grayish tone to it. All right, let's go here. I feel like I need more water. Probably need to know how to paint, but I mean, I can paint. This is just a little different. So I put on the color, and then I'm going to add different tones of that color. All right, let's try this one. I'm not hating it. Yeah, I'm not hating it at all. I'm going to let that all dry, and I'm going to figure out what to do because the flowers are white. So let me grab something to do white. So I smooched on some Lost Shadow oxide. I'm going to clean my paintbrush real quick because I don't want any color in here at all. So the oxide, it's a light gray. Let's see what happens. I mean, I have a little bit of white paint left. I guess I'm going to have to use that because this is not going to work. I have the antique linen, but that is definitely going to be yellow. I guess that's not the worst thing that could happen. Well, let me let that dry and let's see what it looks like. It's too transparent, so I grabbed a little bit of white paint and I'm going to put on the white. I don't have much left, so that's why I was hesitating, trying not to use the white paint. But it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just got to be the suggestion of a flower. You know what I'm saying? I sketched this one with green, so it's looking a little funny. I thought the green would help shade it. I'll probably go back over it with the watercolor pencil in the walnut stain. Alright, it's not terrible. I'm going to let that dry. Alright, not terrible. I'm going to take this walnut stain watercolor pencil and add a little bit of shading. So here I'm just taking my watercolor pencil and I'm adding some shading and some highlights to the leaves, the flowers, and the stem. And that is all I'm going to do. And that is my back cover of my book. I add some leaves and a butterfly to the front cover, and then I am done. And that was the process of how I use some mixed media to embellish the front of the scrapbook album. I hope you were inspired by some things I did, and will go ahead and try to do your own scrapbook album. Thank you so much for watching, and have a fabulous day.